Just wanted to read to you ito pong isang statement ng isang sister organization po natin ang tinatawag na Solidarity for Sovereignty. Ito pong S4S. Amidst a state of confusion, in evaluating the impact of the strategic situation which a failed leadership has imposed on our society today, it is imperative for all to recognize that the single most significant and destructive event now confronting our nation is the presently ongoing global financial collapse, and this administration's glaring inability to effect an appropriate response. Lest our organization and like-minded Filipinos be drawn into debates on political preferences, on anticipated and periodic elections, despite the insidious or express manifestations of opportunists among the opposing proponents and among the desperate incumbents. We must continuously and rigorously stress that the fundamental reason for the failure of our leaders to govern and promote our people's welfare is their negligence and cowardice to confront the evil which has imposed its greed on Philippine society and the rest of humanity. At present, as Lyndon LaRouche has accurately forecasted and repeatedly warned the U.S. leadership and the rest of the world, the financial system of floating exchange rates implemented in 1971-72 by the IMF-led financial oligarchy through the so-called independent central banking system is in an irreversible mode of disintegration, precipitating a massive international banking crisis of historical proportions. As evidenced by bubble blow-ups of highly leveraged derivatives investments, monumental hedge funds losses, and real estate mortgage bonds collapses in continental Europe and the United States, in which most, if not all, governments, including our very own, are speculative investors, present civilization is now confronted with the distinct possibility of a new dark age, the gravity of which shall be unprecedented in human history. In a futile effort to camouflage hundred trillions of losses, the U.S. Federal Reserve, the Central Bank of Europe, and that of Japan have embarked in a hyperinflationary activity, printing monetary aggregates as bailouts and as stimulus packages, giving the false impression of activity and life in the world's speculative markets. The rest of the world's governments will immediately follow suit in their desperate attempt to buy time. We can expect prices of all commodities, basic or otherwise, especially oil and oil-based products, to very rapidly increase, and a subsequent dramatic deterioration of our government's capability to defend the population from disease and starvation. Our collective leadership in government, business, and the academe can no longer ignore the magnitude of the economic and financial crisis, which demands immediate attention, requiring the highest moral and intellectual competence. Despite the political manipulations and complexities created by politicians and a slew of greedy opportunists, we must understand and acknowledge the grave errors of policy, muster the courage to cause a fundamental shift, and implement all required defensive and strategic measures to counter the imminent destruction of our society. It is time to assert our nation's economic sovereignty, not just on moral grounds, but as a scientific justification that for an economy to survive and prosper, the people must have priority. It is this appreciation of the principle of general welfare, as exemplified by Argentina's Kirchner and Malaysia's Mahathir, which has shown to the world that indeed there is life after the IMF and a way out of the financial crisis. In order to accomplish this state of readiness, we must take determined steps to strengthen the institutions which comprise the three main branches of government. This democratic system is what has been proven to be most responsive to direct intervention by the citizenry. Admittedly, these have failed our people in many and various issues, but the principle of checks and balances, whatever the political pressure exerted or incentives offered, still continues to function. Those officials who abuse the implicit trust granted to them by the people to occupy these institutions are eventually removed, while certain immoral and onerous legislative proposals like the EVAT or the APIRA and the CHACHA are subjected to contentious debates, the implementation of which can still be postponed, denied, or repealed. Some Filipinos who sponsor the recent proposals of constitutional changes, or the CHACHA, specifically aimed at replacing our form of government from the American-inspired presidential system to that of the European parliamentary system, ought to be made aware that dubious interests who advocate the same changes betray the workings of sinister minds, taking full advantage of a desperate and confused population to tie the noose of fascism, which permanently establishes themselves and their kind as de facto dictators. It's a system more easily manipulated, devoid of built-in controls, which gave rise to Adolf Hitler and other current fascist leaders working to institutionalize a one-world government. They who propose this system change, whose motive is to subvert the people's will and deliver our country into the hands of globalists, should be exposed for what they truly are: neo-fascists and surrogates of evil. And to appease their gods, we, the people, are offered as human sacrifices. Unless this solidarity for sovereignty, in fulfilling our mission, together with like-minded Filipino patriots, remain vigilant and committed to carve out a future for our youth, provide not just the continuance, but the basis for the improvement of the quality of life of future generations, act in solidarity with all other worldwide historical individuals to save humankind from self-destruction, this present civilization, as we know it to be, shall not survive the coming onslaught. We call on all Filipinos to act in accordance with man's true nature, created in the image and likeness of God, with inherent powers of cognition and capacity to promote the common good, to actively participate in the process of securing the future of our country. We enjoin all patriots to vigorously cause the elimination of all political and economic policies which violate the inalienable rights of man. We challenge the Filipino youth to demand from your elders the opportunity to realize your dreams of a society based on truth, justice, peace, and development. Signed, Solidarity for Sovereignty Movement, the S4S.